Good evening and a warm welcome to the State of Business on our television. I'm Nishani Pigera. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines first. President says cabinet reshuffle will further strengthen government's work. And government to map out country's disaster risk areas. In tonight's main story, the government says a death toll from the weather calamity has risen to 203 and still 96 persons are unaccounted for. The Disaster Management Centre data showed that 631,000 people belonging to 164,000 families in 15 districts are affected due to floods and landslides. Meanwhile, Minister of Disaster Management Anuruddha Shinayappa says the government will strengthen laws to eradicate unauthorised constructions as it has led to environmental hazards. He also said his ministry has undertaken a project to map out the country's disaster-prone areas.
We have laws even now in the country under the Pradeshiya Sabha Act as well as Municipal Act. But unfortunately in this country, most of the floodplains have been taken over by people and they have built unauthorized buildings. That is a fact. Even in the landslide prone areas you will see, people are now slowly going up in the mountains. Even if you go to Kandy, even if you go to Badulla, you can see how they have constructed houses in a very dangerous manner. Unfortunately, Badulla and Mandaravela, we had detailed maps to say these areas are vulnerable for disasters. Now we have asked the government, they are providing funds. Even this year they have provided us funds that we will map out entire country. Now we are doing in Kagalla now. Government will have to bring in new legislation to see that these unauthorized buildings to be removed. That is a fact.
A number of private sector as well as government sector institutions have come forward to lend support to the flood victims. The staff of the Bank of Ceylon have collected dry rations and other essential items to be sent to the disaster-affected people. This morning, the lorries carrying disaster relief items left the BOC head office.
These lorries will now go to various parts of the country, including the Kalutara district, Galle district, Matara district, as well as Ratnapura. They will be accompanied by our officers to ensure that equitable distribution of these goods are done to those who have been badly affected.
Meanwhile, IWS Holdings too collected contributions from the staff and clients. Dry rations, water bottles and clothes were among the items that were delivered to the needy people. The collected items were dispatched to Ayagama Rahula Vidyalaya in Ratnapura using an IWS helicopter. Do stay with us as we go in for a short break. There's more news on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The State of Business. President Maithripala Sirisena says the recent cabinet reshuffle was done to further strengthen the government's work. The president said this speaking at an event at the Ministry of Mahaweli this morning.
The newly appointed State Minister of Mahaweli, Minister Mahinda Amaravira, assumed duties at the Mahaweli Ministry this morning. President Maithripala Sirisena also was present at the occasion.
අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල සංශෝධන කියන ඒවා අපේ රටේ අලුත් දේවල් නෙවෙයි. 1947 පළවෙනි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉඳලම අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල සංශෝධන හැම ආණ්ඩුවකම වෙලා තියෙනවා. 50 දශකයේ 60 දශකයේ ගත් විට ඒ කාලේ ඇමතිවරු රෑ නින්දට ගියාම උදේ නැගිටලා බලනකොට ඇමතිකම නැහැ. එහෙම තමයි ඒ කාලේ ඇමතිකම් වලින් අස් කෙරුවේ. අලුත් ඇමතිවරු පත් කෙරුවේ. අපි මේ අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල සංශෝධනය කළේ රජයේ ගමන් මඟ ශක්තිමත් කරමින් අලුත් වැඩපිළිවෙලක් එක්ක ඒ කියන්නේ මෙතෙක්කා කරගෙන ආ වැඩපිළිවෙල තවත් ශක්තිමත් කරමින් විධිමත් කරමින් කාර්යක්ෂම කරමින් ජනතා සේවාවන් අපි මැතිවරණ ප්‍රකාශ වලින් දී ඇති පොරොන්දු අනුව ඉෂ්ට කිරීම සඳහා ගෙනියන වැඩපිළිවෙල.
4 new state ministers and 4 deputy ministers were sworn in at the Presidential Secretariat today. Lakshman Yapa Abeyewardene is the new State Minister of Public Enterprise Development. Vasantha Senanayake is the State Minister of Foreign Affairs. Meanwhile, Dr. Harsha De Silva has been appointed as the Deputy Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs. Ranjan Ramanayake, who is the Deputy Minister of Social Empowerment and Welfare, was given the additional post of Kandyan Heritage as well. Karunaratna Parnavitana is the new Deputy Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training. Iran Vikramaratna is the new State Minister of Finance. Palitha Rangabandara is State Minister of Irrigation and Water Resource Management. Lasantha Alagiyawanna was appointed as the new Deputy Minister, Finance and Media. In more news tonight, Finance Minister Mangala Samaraweera says an unprecedented window of opportunities are before Sri Lanka. The minister said the present government's human rights record and good governance initiatives also augur well for the country's development agenda. He expressed these views at the inauguration of Sri Lanka Investment and Business Conclave 2017 in Colombo last evening.
Sri Lanka Investment and Business Conclave 2017 was inaugurated under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. Around 130 foreign investors and business partners from 23 countries are meeting their Sri Lankan counterparts at this year's forum, which is held under the theme Growth Through Partnerships.
The self-imposed isolation Sri Lanka went through for nearly 9 years is now over. Sri Lanka is right back in the center of the international stage. Without reconciliation and durable peace, without guarantees of non-recurrence of conflict, Sri Lanka cannot achieve economic success. Human rights, democracy, rule of law, good governance, these are tied to stability and in turn to economic success. Reconciliation and development are intertwined. Without reconciliation and a stable foundation that it would bring, sustainable economic progress would once again elude our nation.
Speaking further, the Finance Minister said that the government will improve the country's business climate further. He also promised to rectify the shortcomings in the existing trade agreements with other nations.
Steps are also being taken to address some of the shortcomings of the existing FTA. If all works well, by end 2017, Sri Lanka would have preferential access to a market of nearly 3 billion people: India, the EU, China, Pakistan, and Singapore. I want to assure all of you that these agreements will indeed be negotiated carefully with positive and negative lists, safeguard agreements, and dispute settlement mechanisms which pursue Sri Lanka's interest. Given the lack of fiscal space, much of the investment in major programs will have to come from private investment, both domestic and foreign.
Stocks closed on a positive note today. Let's find out more details after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching The State of Business. Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended in a positive note today. The all-share price index gained 19.07 points to close at 6,674.32, and the S&P/SL 20 index gained 15.63 points to close the session at 3,818.9. Turnover was 598.2 million rupees and 28.4 million shares were traded. And now let's take a look at the day's forex rates. And with that, we wind up the show for tonight. Do join us again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening.